Welcome everyone. We're going to get started here in just a minute. Welcome to History Happy Hour. Thank you all for being here. So welcome to History Happy Hour. I'm Liz Hobson, Museum Administrator at the Idaho State Museum. We hope you're all staying safe during this time. The Idaho State Historical Society, including the Idaho State Museum, Idaho State Archives, State Historic Preservation Office, and the Old Idaho Penitentiary and historic sites are dedicated to preserving and promoting Idaho history, even when we can't have you visit. This week's History Happy Hour is going musical, thanks to our partnerships with Opera Idaho and a dear friend of the museum, Paul Schiller. Later in our show, we will actually head to the Idaho State Museum, virtually of course, for a live performance from the Idaho Room on the historic 1878 Weber Grand piano. After the performance, we will have a few guests join us for a panel discussion. Throughout tonight's event, please feel free to put any questions you may have in the chat bar. I will do my best to have them answered. And first, I want to make mention of how special tonight is. Not only are we participating in Downtown Boise Association's virtual First Thursday event, but it's also the last day of a very important giving campaign, Idaho Gives, that has been going on for the last 2 weeks. Joining me to talk a bit more about the importance of Idaho Gives is Deanna Burrell, Development and Marketing Administrator for the Idaho State Historical Society. Welcome.
Thank you, Liz, and thank all of you for joining us this evening. As we celebrate Idaho Gives and all that nonprofits do for our community, I wonder if you can imagine a world without music, art, plays, movies, opera, museums, those stories that really bring us together. I can't imagine that, and I don't want to. Cultural organizations enrich our lives. They make us laugh and cry. They make us think, and they let us escape into other worlds. They tell the stories of our past, of our humanity, and they help inform our future. They educate us and they inspire curiosity. They are also employers. Before the COVID-19 pandemic, cultural organizations in Idaho employed nearly 1,000 people. They contributed over $51 million to Idaho's economy. During the pandemic, most of these organizations have had to shutter. They've been closed for over 2 months now. Staff has been let go, and those staff are now queued up for unemployment, food assistance, and housing assistance. That's why this Idaho Gives is especially important to organizations like ours and Opera Idaho. Your contributions through idahogives.org to the Foundation for Idaho History and Opera Idaho are helping us connect Idahoans to our past and to each other. If in the last 2 months you would have gone to the Idaho State Museum or the Old Idaho Penitentiary or attended an Opera Idaho production, please consider giving that amount of the ticket to support our current and future programming. With your help, we can continue to bring you events like this until we can see you in person. I hope you enjoy this concert and a glass of coiled wine, thanks to them this evening. And I hope you help support the Foundation for Idaho History and Opera Idaho during Idaho Gives and when we open our doors to you again. Thank you for making history and beautiful music with us tonight. Cheers.
Thank you so much, Deanna. Thank you for sharing. And speaking of programs that connect Idahoans to music and our past, it's time we head to the Idaho State Museum and join our special guests. Musician Paul Schiller and Opera Idaho soprano Leslie Mauldin will be performing a brief concert entitled Idaho Summer. Leslie's experience ranges from film, television, and a diverse number of roles in opera around the US and abroad. A dedicated advocate for arts and education, she also serves on the Meridian Idaho Arts Commission.
What is it?
Paul is a concert
opera
pianist,
singer.
master Steinway technician.
So what is it?
Early on in
A
his career,
podcast or a?
he apprenticed with Steinway and Sons, a legendary tuner. He has also trained around the US and abroad. Currently he performs, teaches, completes technical work on instruments and volunteers around the Northwest for many musical and professional organizations. He is also a great friend of the Idaho State Historical Society. It's great to have you both. We are about to see Paul play on our beautiful 1878 Weber Grand piano. We will go in depth into this amazing life of the piano and Paul's connection to its story after the concert, but I have to share how it ended up here in Idaho. The piano was built in New York City and was deemed one of the top instruments of the day. Miss Carrie Cartee, after studying music in Germany, saw the piano in New York City on her way back to Boise. As a surprise, her father, Idaho's first Surveyor General Lafayette Cartee, purchased the piano for her. It traveled by train to Salt Lake, then by wagon to the family home here in Boise on Grove Street. It produces the same rich tone it did when Carrie first sat at the keyboard in 1878. So sit back, relax, and enjoy Idaho summer.
Trees of birds of evenings. not talking much, and the talk is quiet, of nothing in particular. Of nothing at all particular. Of nothing at all. The stars are wide and alive. Is it like a smile of great sweetness, and they seem very near? All my people are larger bodies than mine. Voices gentle and leading us, like the voices of sleeping birds. One is an artist, she's living at home. One is a musician, she's living at home. One is my mother, who is good to me. One is my father, who is good to me. Sometimes in the arms of this earth, how shall ever tell the sorrow of man on this earth? I live on quilts on the grass in a summer evening, among the songs of the because my people, my uncle, my aunt, my But will not, oh, will not It's an interesting online performance experience. Should I join you?
Paul and Leslie, that was amazing. So thank you for that. That was very, very beautiful. And we're getting comments coming in. So thank you so much for that. We will let Paul and Leslie take a breath while I introduce our panelists for the evening. I'm joined tonight by Mark Junkert, General Director of Opera Idaho, Nicole Inghilterra, Capitol Curator and Museum Registrar here at the Idaho State Museum, and of course, Paul and Leslie. Welcome all. So to get us started, Nicole, I gave a brief little intro of the story of this piano, but I wanted to know if you could share just a little bit more on the history.
Happily. So this piano is actually, it's really beautiful for multiple reasons, and I'll let Paul speak more to the technical components there. But it gives us a really fabulous window into a period of the Treasure Valley's development and also into the museum's history. So before we comprehensively reimagined the museum and reopened, the Idaho State Museum did have the piano in the what is now Syringa Gallery, where it was played on and off throughout the 70s and 80s. And it was then taken out of the piano because it had been used pretty excessively, and so we wanted to make sure we kept it safe for generations to come. And I believe at that point, Arthur Hart, our previous state historian, had actually reached out to Paul to work on the piano at some point in time, and that project did get suspended. With the new museum coming together, that became a possibility that it could get comprehensively reworked as well and become a fixture of the Idaho State Museum, and in a really unique way as well. Most of our artifacts are held behind glass or plexi and can't be touched, and this is in a way a living artifact. It allows us to interact with the past on a level that a lot of artifacts don't allow. So we get to be in Carrie's drawing room. We get to share in that experience with her and with her family.
Yeah. So before finding its home here in the Idaho room or there in the Idaho room, I wondered if Mark could talk a little bit about where it did live for all those years.
Well, I don't think it's all those years, but it's 3 or 4 at any rate. When you contemplate the history of this piano, 3 or 4 is kind of small. But yes, Opera Idaho hosted the restoration in one of the rooms at the Esther Simplot Performing Arts Academy. This was made possible when Paul and Walt Lee, who was a board member for Opera Idaho at the time, got together and came to me and said, would you host this? And we did, and glad we did. It sounds wonderful. And thanks for the program. I'll just interject. This is the first live performance of music I've heard in about 2 months. And probably for many people who are listening, an actual live performance of music has been rare. So thank you both.
Yeah, definitely. So, and Paul, now that we've given you a chance to kind of sit down and gather yourself after that just beautiful program once again, you're the one that's going to be able to tell us more about that restoration and how it really became to be at the quality it's at right now. Do you care to share a little bit about that?
Yes, I don't know if you can hear me or not. Can you hear me?
Absolutely, sounding good.
Okay. All right. Well, when you enter the Idaho room, you will look at a sign that's posted on the entryway, and it says, Boise piano tuner Paul Schiller, with the help of many concerned musicians in the community. I had them worded that way because I was afraid that I would leave people out that really were instrumental in helping us with this project. Now, a year or so ago, I ran into a woman on Capitol Boulevard at Chase Bank. And I said to her, would you be my Caroline? And she looked at me with those beautiful eyes and she said one word, yes. And that woman was Leslie Mauldin. And we've had a great time with this piece. We don't call it Knoxville Summer, which is its proper title. We call it Idaho Summer. And it's about a young woman growing up in Idaho and everything that she's asking about life at that time. So I want to make sure that everyone knows that there were a variety of people that are very conscientious and helped me with the project at Simplot Academy. The piano was in the basement of Simplot Academy in the library of the Master Chorale. And Jim Urach was there witnessing the rebirth of this piano. So he would come by every so often and ask me, how are things today, Paul? And I'd play a little bit. And those of you who know Jim Urach is very excited about music. He said, oh, that's coming along. That's going to be great. I can't wait to hear it. Now, how did we get from in the warehouse with Walt Lee and I to in the basement of Simplot Academy and to the Idaho room? How did we get there? Well, I have many friends across the country. I've worked for Steinway internationally, and I have friends that know a lot more than I do. And I told them I have a Weber 7-foot piano, serial number 12439. And they said to me, Paul, that's old. And so our job was to get the Renner Company in Stuttgart, Germany, to build new parts for this piano, the parts that you actually play. So the reason I could play Idaho Summer with this beautiful soprano here, I said, I don't want you to hold back at all. And she just let it go. By some chance, here they are, all on this earth. And I could match her tonally. We have learned to be able to focus with projection and focus. That has to do with coherency. This has to do with pianos as well as the human voice. And when Leslie and I get together with this Weber, you can really hear it. It's called tone bending. Tone building is what it's called. The harmonics build on each other and the whole tone, the tone of the instrument and Leslie just blossom like a wonderful rose. Well, how did we get that? Walt Lee knows, Walt Lee watched me. We take the raw parts from Stuttgart, Germany, and we put them inside that Weber. And my job is to find the sound. In other words, hunt for the sound where it really resonates well. And Walt was watching me do it for only one note. And he said, my God, that's a lot of work. And I said, you got that right. It's a lot of work. Well, we spent 4 years with that piano. Del Parkinson, my friend, sat down and played it, and he said, boy, Paul, we've got a real singer here. A real singer. Well, guess what, folks? We had a real singer today.
Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you so much for sharing just more about that whole beautiful program. So turning to the artifact itself, you know, Nicole, can you talk a little bit more about what it is that how it is that we take care of the instrument today? As you mentioned, it is an artifact, but it's also still, you know, being used. So how do you deal with that being an artifact and being played? Nicole, if you want to.
Yes, I understand the question. It is an artifact, but what's interesting about it is it's a really well-made artifact. It was made by German immigrants, and all they knew was to overbuild the piano. And so I tell you, if there's ever an earthquake here that starts bringing down the building, I can tell you where to be, under the Weber. It will support anything. So it is solid. It is really solid. The parts we put in are excellent. We expect it, I expect it, to last another 140 years. Well, how do we accomplish that? We want to preserve it here as an artifact, but we still want to be able to enjoy it for what we did, like today. So the key here is to discipline ourselves to use it for projects that are worthwhile, that can really utilize the artistic ability of the piano. I had Leslie and I play this tune several months ago for Mike Winter. He was here, and Leslie had never heard it before. And she went, oh my God, I can sing with this piano. So we have to be cautious in how we use it, but it will, you know, with care, it'll be around 140 years from now.
Absolutely. That's definitely the hope. Thank you, Paul. And I'll just ask, I'll ask Nicole if you have anything to follow up on that, since you're in the museum and seeing that balance that Paul's talking about, that we want to care for it, but also use it. So Nicole, do you have anything to add on that?
Yeah, so it's quite interesting. We obviously have a wonderful relationship with Paul, who helps us take care of some of the technical side of things. But we also have the ability to cover it from the light as well. Light, interestingly enough, does actually damage artifacts, even though we kind of ignore light in our own home sometimes as an element of destruction. So we uncover it for special occasions, like Paul was saying. And we also go through a rigorous process of making sure that whoever is playing it is well-skilled and has that portfolio to be able to treat it with the respect, love, and care it deserves. It's a really unique piece, and I can pretty confidently say there's nothing else in our collection that we utilize in this way. So it's special on multiple levels. And I've heard of some other artifacts throughout the country being used in similar manners at different museums, but we kind of tread a very unique path with this piece. It's really, really stunning and makes the Idaho State Museum quite remarkable.
Yeah, and you know, looking at that, has the museum, or if you know the Historical Society, have we undergone a restoration quite like this artifact, if you know of any?
There are a couple that we've worked this extensively on. Some of them have been community driven. Many years ago, the original Idaho State flag was conserved through the fundraising efforts and conservation efforts of Idaho's community. In fact, school children raised the funds to actually purchase the conservation skill for that. And again, to the Idaho Room's splendor, that stunning dome above, probably above Paul right now, that was also conserved quite extensively in the lead up to the museum. We have some really stunning textile pieces as well that have been almost entirely rebuilt, essentially. So it's really fun. The inner lives of artifacts are they're very unique, but the point is, though, that whatever work happens should remain somewhat invisible. So the Weber, it's absolutely incredible, and it sounds absolutely beautiful and very much like it was exactly as it was in Carrie's day. But the idea is that we let it retain its age too. I think Paul has mentioned on numerous occasions that you can almost see the wells where Carrie's fingers played the piano, and generations of her family cherished it. So that age age tells a really incredible story of its journey and of its lifespan, and it will continue to bear those signs of wear in a really beautiful way.
Thank you for that. And another one for you, Paul. If you want to speak to this, somebody asked in the audience. Oh, we got another question. So I got a few for you, Paul. But Paul, did you have pictures that helped you know how to restore the piano? And did you have to manufacture any parts?
I didn't manufacture, well, no, that's a good question. The parts they sent me from Stuttgart didn't fit. And I had to adjust them, to make adjustments to get them to fit the piano. And that's my job as a restorer, to get the parts to fit, to play, and to sound really good. What was the rest of the question? Repeat the question.
So how did you know what the piano would need to look like? Did you have pictures?
No, I've done a lot of work on piano, Steinways primarily. And I know, that's a good question. I know what they were after in the factory. These people were not beginners. They had an excellent instrument and they knew it. And they went to a lot of work to get the sound out. We call it getting the sound out, finding the sound. So I really didn't have any pictures, but I knew where to go with it, simply because I've done it so much.
Excellent, thank you. And for you, Leslie, is there anything you would like to add about the song choices that you sang tonight? Anything you wanted to add?
Well, the piece was, I think it's so interesting because it's one of the few pieces in the repertoire, I believe, that was actually commissioned by a soprano. It was commissioned by Eleanor Staber, and she took the beautiful poetry of James Agee, 1938 poetry of James Agee, and asked Samuel Barber she commissioned this piece, and I believe it premiered in 1947. She commissioned it in 48. It premiered with the Boston Symphony Orchestra, and it's sometimes sung by a tenor, but it's just, the music it's one of the most beautifully evocative pieces I've ever heard, where you can just, all the senses are treated. You can smell the air, you can hear the sounds, and I think it's such an interesting and beautiful piece to hear, because this piano that we played it on was there listening. Actually, that wood soaked in the sounds that James Agee talks about in that beautiful piece. The streetcars and the belling and starting stair to us, all this beautiful descriptive language that just makes you be able to hear what this instrument actually, this wood soaked it in. And so I love singing this piece with an instrument that was there. So.
And this is the reminiscences of Agee in 1938 of 1915 when he was 6 years old. So this is him as a 6-year-old looking out onto the street and watching people go by. And that's over 110 years ago. Interesting, the intersection of history and music. And I have a trivia question for the audience. And if we can get this right, once we start performing at Opera Idaho, you will get 2 tickets to our next opera. There is an opera, and Paul, you can't vote in this because I think you know the answer. Okay, an opera written in 1962 depicting an Idaho historical event from 1905. Does anybody know the historical event? You can put it in the chat part. A true historical event. The opera is called A Season for Sorrow. It was written by Griffith Brott in 1962. Opera Idaho, in its nearly 50-year history, has produced this opera 2 times. You can even guess if you want, Paul.
I did not know that. I didn't know that. I feel like I should.
Anybody know the topic of the opera?
No.
Sunshine Mine is a guest? No.
All right, we got guesses coming in, so it's not Sunshine Mine. Any other guesses from our?
December 30th of 1905. Yes, Shelley Bradshaw, the Studeberg assassination. Ex-Governor Studeberg was assassinated on December 30th in Caldwell, Idaho. It was politically motivated, and there is an opera based on this. There's also an opera written in the 1980s based on a 1971 novel by Wallace Stegner entitled, you know, this is an easier one. Yes, Nicole has that. Angle of Repose. And there is a scene in that at what is now the Diversion Dam out east of Boise. It's not a happy scene, but that is an opera also based in Idaho, part of it. But I'm done with trivia. Have no more.
Well, thank you for that. And let's see, we have another question that came in. So how many different artists have the opportunity to play the Weber for our performances? Nicole, do you want to answer that one?
Yeah, sure. Just a little over a handful, from my understanding, have been granted that access. The selection process, they have to submit a portfolio, references, and recommendation from other individuals who have respected careers and such in professional pianists' repertoires. So it's quite a rigorous selection process. Our curator of collections, Sarah Phillips, then fields kind of those, as well as our museum administrator, Liz Hobson. So yeah, it's quite a process. And again, because of how unique this piece is, we want to make sure that top professionals with Paul's qualifications or blessings sometimes have that level of skill to play it.
Thank you. And so one more question for Paul here. What was the most challenging part you thought of restoring the piano?
The most challenging part, that's has a two-part, really a three-part answer. When I was in the middle of the 4 years in the basement at Simplot, I invited people to come and play the piano, good musician friends of mine. And one of those good musician friends of mine was Kevin Kirk. I know that a lot of you know Kevin Kirk. He's a fine pianist. And he didn't want to play it. He wanted to listen to me play it. And all he would do was pace back and forth in the room in front of the filing cabinets for the master chorale. And finally he shouted to me, "Old growth wood." Leslie was talking about how the piano blends with her so well. Kevin couldn't believe the sound either. And he was trying to figure out why. Well, it's old growth wood. So part of the challenge was trying to figure out, why is this piano sounding the way it is? That was the first challenge. And we are still answering that today. We're still listening to it because it changes over time. It's gotten better and better over time. I won't go into why that happens now, not enough time, but it is, okay?
I think she's happier. She's being played.
Yes, she is being played. Okay, the second challenge was finding the sound of the piano. Finding the sound. Finding out, where are you? That's my job. That's what Steinway taught me. How to find the sound in any given concert instrument, which of course this is. And the third challenge was moving it. Can you imagine? This piano is priceless. The museum was done, the Idaho room was ready, and I said to Mark Dunkley, I said, "We've got to move that piano." And he goes, "Oh my God." We were taking a chance. I mean, once you lose a piano on the truck, it's gone. Well, needless to say, both of us supervised that move over here. So that was really nail-biting time. Now it's safely in the Idaho room where we can enjoy it and it can mature. See, spruce, if it's not used for a long time, it has a tendency to go dormant. And when the sound waves go through the wood into that grain, then it wakes up and it goes, oh yes, this is what I'm supposed to do.
Kind of like a voice, actually.
Yeah. Wow.
I understand we just got an indication that there was a request for an encore, and unfortunately, we didn't prepare for that, but there will be other times here where the piano's played, and we'll be back. So.
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, I think the public.
Leslie and I love an audience. Get energy off an audience. And we'd like to have this room full of people. We've heard this room full of people with this piano, and they played the Beethoven Kreutzer Sonata. And the woman that played this piano was from Baylor University, PhD. And she said to me, Paul, I love you, Paul. I want to take this piano home with me. That's how good this piano is.
I was at that concert. It was a beautiful concert.
Yeah.
Oh.
Wow. Well, thank you. Thank you all. I think I'm going to ask the panel for any last thoughts, and I wanted to see if Deanna and Mark had anything more to add on Idaho Gives before we wrap this evening up. And I just wanted to thank you all for being here. So Deanna and Mark, anything to add?
Yeah, I can simply add, I think I said this in some talk about a month ago. What we miss as artists and producing organizations, performing organizations, is you all, the audience. This is great. It's nice, but Paul and Leslie, wouldn't it be nice if there were people like right in front of you that you could react?
Yes.
Yes.
And we'll all get back to that at some point. This is nice along the way. And again, appreciate both of you performing. And Idaho Gives does end today, and I think it's well above $3 million now, right?
It is. I was just looking at it. It's over 3.5 million right now, which is fantastic across the state.
It's a record. Tough time for all of us in the arts and all nonprofits in the state of Idaho. We keep working and hoping we can do what we do soon again.
Absolutely. Thank you for that. Deanna, anything from you?
I just want to, add how much really a celebration Idaho Gives is. When Idaho Gives started in 2013, I was working at the Idaho Nonprofit Center, and we started it, and there were people in Idaho who were like, people aren't going to give to that. They're not going to celebrate. People want to compete, and that's not at all what happened. People really come together to support the community, the arts, human services, all of it. And it's, it really, I hope everybody kind of takes a minute and looks at what that $3.5 million really means across the state, and the generosity of Idahoans. And, to echo what Mark said, everybody's looking forward to being together again. And, it was nice to have partners like Opera Idaho where we can almost be together, at least in song and in spirit. So I hope you all have a beautiful evening. And, if you don't give to us, I hope you give to someone who really, some organization that feels a passion for you. It's really important to them, even if it's $5. So thank you all very much. I hope you have a wonderful, wonderful evening. Thanks, Liz.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And thank you all for joining tonight. We hope you have enjoyed it as much as we have. I want to thank my guests, Deanna, Mark, Nicole, and of course, Paul and Leslie. We are committed to providing opportunities like this to share with you, our visitors, while at home. And thanks to our partners tonight, including Opera Idaho and Coiled Wines. Please stay connected with our partners through their websites and social media. I'd also like to thank again all who have donated to Idaho Gives to support nonprofits across the state and contribute to programming like this. And the Idaho State Historical Society has developed a wide range of free resources for research, education, and fun that you can find at idaho.history.gov/historyathome, or you can stay up to date on our social media pages. So thank you again. Have a great night and stay safe.